Example 2 is going to require a little bit more work. So we got 2x to the third minus 3x squared minus 32x equals negative 48. What I would do is start by getting everything on the same side. So I'm going to add 48 to both sides. It's bad looking 8. Let me try that again. So add it to both sides, and we end up with 2x to the third minus 3x squared minus 32x plus 48 equals, or sorry, is greater than 0. Now, effectively, we are going to treat it temporarily as if it was equal to 0, but that's for us to worry about later. Now, this next part is something that we haven't thought about probably since Algebra 2. What I'm going to do is, this is factorable by doing the method called factoring by grouping. So, I'm going to change this minus here in the second part to a plus and negative. So that way I'm grouping those two. It's the associative property. We can group things together, no problem. So now it's 2x to the third minus 3x squared plus negative 32x plus 48. Now, with this, we can factor out, in that first group, we can factor out an x squared from both of those. When we factor out an x squared, we're going to be left with 2x minus 3. From the other group, the negative 32x minus 40, or sorry, plus 48, we're going to be able to factor out a minus 16, a negative 16, which would leave us with 2x minus 3. And all this still greater than 0. Now taking a look at this, we haven't done this in a bit, so this still might feel a little uncomfortable. Both of the things that we factored out, we're left with 2x minus 3. We can factor out a common factor. In this case, a common factor happens to be a common group. So we can factor out all of 2x minus 3 from both this side and from this side. Now when we factor it out of the left side, we're left with just x squared. When we factor it out of the right side, we're left with minus 16. Again, still greater than 0. We can keep factoring. The 2x minus 3, we're done factoring that. X squared minus 16, we could factor into x plus 4 times x minus 4, and still, oops, sorry, not equal to anymore, but greater than 0. So looking at the things that make this equal to 0, this one we'd do 2x minus 3 equals 0, and we'd add 3 to both sides. We end up with 2x equals 3, divide by 2, divide by 2. We end up with x equals 3 over 2. So that's going to be one of our key points there. This next one, I'm not going to have to go through all of those steps. We're going to end up with x equals negative 4. And this last one for x minus 4, we're going to end up with x equals positive 4. Now what we need to do is we're going to graph these on a number line. And I'm going to do this off to the left here. So on a number line, we have the three values and put 0 in the middle. So one of them's at negative 4. That's our furthest to the left. So here's our negative 4. And I'm going to put a dot there. And again, it's going to be an open circle. Waiting for it. There we go. Open circle because it's not equal to. It's just exclusively greater than. Another one we have at positive 4. And again, that'll be another open circle. The other one, 3 over 2, that's 1.5. So that's like here-ish. So if that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. Be right there. Now, in order for us to figure this out, we're going to have to set up, we're going to have to test various pieces between each point and also on the outsides. So let's just start going left to right. Let's start by testing something on the far right, or sorry, the far left side. We'll do x, we'll test out x equals negative 5. Sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking right now. So test, we'll start off with x equals negative 5. Now, in order for us to do that, we're going to plug this in. We're going to do 2 times negative 5 squared, sorry, to the third, minus 3x squared minus 32, sorry, I miswrote that, times 3 times negative 5 squared minus 32 times negative 5. Checking to see if we end up with a result that's greater, or sorry, yes, my goodness, greater than negative 48. I'm too far zoomed out. Let me just do this. Okay, going through this, I'm going to do a little bit of this by hand, but for other parts, we can use a calculator. 2 times negative 5 to the third. Negative 5 to the third is negative 125. I'll clean that up more in a second. Minus 3 times negative 5 squared is positive 25. And then we have minus 32 times negative 5. Well, 32 times negative 5 is 160. Sorry, negative 160. So 32 minus 32 times negative 5 would be plus 160. Checking to see if that's greater than negative 48. 2 times negative 125 is negative 250. 3 times 25 is negative 75 plus 160, seeing if that's greater than negative 48. 250, negative 250 minus 100, minus 75 gives us negative 325 plus 160 gives us negative 165, which is in fact not greater than negative 48. So that is not one of our solutions. Okay, next up, let's test out one that's in the middle here. So again, not off to the left because we tested out negative 5 didn't work. Let's test out one in between the negative 4 and the 3 over 2. What I would suggest is plugging in 0 because quite frankly, that's almost always going to be the easiest one to test out. So when we test out x equals 0, we'll end up with 2 times 0 to the third minus 3 times 0 squared minus 32 times 0 is greater than negative 48. This one's going to be nice and easy. 2 times 0 cubed is 0. 3 times 0 squared is 0. 32 times 0 is 0. So we end up with 0 greater than negative 48. That is in fact true. So our solutions, we have some solutions right here. Now before we go any further, I want to define that value or that area right there. It's from negative 4 up to 3 over 2. So we're going to say negative 4 is less than x is less than 3 over 2. Now we're going to test out two more intervals. I'm running out of space. I'm going to move over to the left here. I'm going to kind of break this up. So off to the left here, I'm going to test out one that's between that 3 over 2 and the 4. Let's test out 2 because that's a small number. So we have x equals 2. So it'll be 3 times 2 squared minus goodness gracious, sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. 2 times 2 to the third minus 3 times 2 squared minus 32 times 2, checking to see if we end up with a value that's greater than negative 48. Well, 2 times 2 cubed, that ends up being 16, minus 3 times 2 cubed, that ends up being 12, and then minus 32 times 2, so minus 64, checking to see if that's greater than negative 48. 16 minus 12 is 4 minus negative 64. We end up with negative 60 greater than negative 48. That's just not true. That means 2 is not a solution, nor is any value in between 3 over 2 and positive 4. Testing out one last value, let's test out one on the right side, which is plugging in 5. So plugging in x equals 5. We have 2 times, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. 2 times 5 to the third minus 3 times 5 squared minus 32 times 5, seeing if that's greater than negative 48. Now we already did negative 5 cubed, which is 125. So negative 125. So positive 5 cubed is positive 125. So 2 times positive 125 is 250. Minus 3 times 5 squared, or in other words 3 times 25, which gives us minus 75. Then 32 times 5 is minus 160. Checking to see if that's greater than negative 48. 250 minus 75 is 175, minus 160 is 15. Is 15 greater than negative 48? It sure is. So that means we do have solutions off to the right here. So we're going to say this section is for x greater than 4. So our solutions for this equation are negative 4 less than x less than 3 over 2, or x greater than 4.